Bernadette Rai, thank you so much for joining us at the Goa School. It's an honor and a pleasure. Now, you've been working in the social sector and development programming for a long time. I must be, what, 20, 25 years, I guess. And you've been focusing on women and children, and particularly in the area of program planning and monitoring and evaluation. Um, we at the Goa School had a talk that we called Exclusion and Exploitation, the Terrible Two, and it was by a Kenyan activist called Anne Ikiara. And it was then that we wanted to, have you in to talk about the other side of exclusion and exploitation, which is how does one get to a sense of equity and inclusion and diversity, etc. And we hope that, because you've been associated with organizations such as Plan International, National Center for Promotion of Employment of People with Disabilities, and National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights, etc. All these, UNICEF. You will then have a really good view and a handle on this, and we're hoping that you'll share that with us today. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Madhuri. It's my pleasure to join you.
Yeah, great. So I believe you're joining us from Italy. The last I spoke to you, you were zooming around somewhere in Jordan.
Yes.
So tell us how you've got this cool career, and I mean, like, what do you do zooming around all these countries? Jordan has Syrian refugees or something, as far as I know. I don't know.
It seems quite a number of refugee camps and things like that in Jordan. I was in Amman for 3 months. It was like an internal kind of working situation where I went and worked in the regional office in Amman, which UNICEF has. Basically, to Madhuri, to answer some of your questions and to kind of give you a quick glimpse of the the work or the person that I am. Although I work with UNICEF, but I am in Italy because of UNICEF's job. But at this point, it's a personal narrative that I wanted to share. Actually, as you know, that I come from, a small village or a hamlet which borders between India and Bhutan. It's a small village called Tode Tangta, which many people haven't heard actually. And this is in a Kalimpong subdivision or Kalimpong district of West Bengal, which is, my village is bang opposite Bhutan. And many a times they say that this village is the last polling station for West Bengal which borders Bhutan. So it's quite a remote area. And from there to Italy, I think my life's journey has been quite interesting. My mother is basically a farmer. She does cardamom farming or organic cardamom farming in the Himalayan region, which is a very difficult job. But being a single mother, she kind of prioritized and focused on my education. So I went to study in a nearby town called Kalimpong, now where I have a house there. Then I went and did my college in Darjeeling, and then I went and did my university in Delhi. So I came from that small village then to Delhi. And in Delhi, after my MSW, I started, working for a small NGO, which was basically, which paid me peanuts. But yes, it was great. Your perspective to life changes when you have kids, and so then I kind of got a little stabilized, and then after that, I'm here. This is my first international posting in Italy, and so I now at the moment I work as a planning monitoring specialist. It's a cross-cutting job that I do. I work with different sectors, and this is the UNICEF's Office of the Research and Foresight. Headquartered division here, and I work as a planning monitoring specialist here. Yes, that is how I am in Florence. Yeah.
But that's a long journey, and you worked really hard. So congratulations on that. Now, what I've got from all of this, and is that you came from like a small village, And you yourself went through this whole process of feeling more included, of trying to fight for a sense of equity, for making sure you're part of a diverse team. So your perspective to this talk is going to be one that's rather personal, and that's
True.
going to, going to be able to really throw a lot of light on the topics that we are interested in. So, so tell me something now. We can move on a little bit from your work trajectory, and talk a little bit about these topics. I mean, for some people, that's just jargon, right? I mean, like they don't even
Yeah.
understand what it means. Like, so what is equity, inclusion, and diversity? I mean, what do these concepts mean? And I'll chuck in an additional question, which is what is the difference between equity and equality? Because I also think that we do tend to think that everyone's equal, and then we have this argument about no, but people are not born equal. And so what is that? If people are not born equal, how do we make them feel equal? And what is equity? And like what do we have to do to make everyone participate on an equal footing? So you can
Yeah.
just give me some of the
Yeah.
concept.
The thing about for me, it's a personal perspective on equality and equity. I think equality is kind of the higher goals that everybody aspires for, a society that everybody is equal. But in reality, for example, like in reality, everybody is not equal. The thing that why it is not is because like even for taking my own story, for example, even in my village, um because in my village I had a mother who was inspired. She had a certain amount of farmland that that could be made used of, and she was able to cultivate. She was able to be a cash crop farmer. That she put me into to an education system which provided a better sense of education to me. Then she followed me through to university, and that's why I'm here. The thing is, so many a times in society, people are not. In my village, for example, there could be another woman with the same situation, single mother with one child, but she may not have land, or she may not have even a house. So that is the thing. That is
Sort of like
the inequity. Yeah.
yeah, so there needs to be an
So
equality of
yeah,
opportunity.
yeah, that is the thing. And for me, like for example, if in a society, you cannot, for example, if you're a single mother with a single girl child, you cannot equate everybody the same way, because my situation would have been different. Another woman's situation with single mother with a single child would have been different, because she may not be having any land, or she may not be having a farmland. So that is the difference between having equal opportunities, or or equal access, or equal playing ground. So
Yeah.
and
So
that
in
is
a sense,
yeah.
those who have less, if you're looking at something with an equity lens, and correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah,
those who have less
you got to identify. If I have
you
to,
don't give them more resources in order to be able to level up with the others
yeah,
who already have
true.
those resources.
Yes,
Otherwise,
the thing is,
they're not competing at the they're not competing at the same level, right?
yes, to
It's a
have an
percentage
equity.
of
Yeah,
franchise.
to
Otherwise.
have an equity lens is also to be able to realize that everything in society is not equal, to have an equity lens, and to identify people that don't they that are not equal, or they don't have equal opportunities,
Mm.
and to have an equity lens is to also have an atmosphere, systems in place, so that you are able to identify the people who are not don't have the equal access, and try and provide that kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
what enabling environment or whatever. That
And it also means that we have to listen to people with diverse perspectives.
true.
I saw like an interesting post on LinkedIn the other day, and I'll just mention it because it really blew my mind. it was a silly conversation between these people at the workplace saying, is it ever right to snitch on your colleague? Because you see a colleague doing something like fudging his work records or something. And everyone was like, no, don't snitch on your colleague. It's never done and all. You just focus on your own thing and see how let that person, be. And then suddenly a person with a disability came in and answered the question and said, no, you should snitch, because if you don't, then what happens is that that person will show that, that he's always at work and he'll get time off. When in fact a person with a disability might need that compensation. So, but they, in their work balance, it will show that they don't have any level.
No, but the thing is, it is snitching. Like, for example, the thing is, if for example, there is a system in place in the office or in the workplace, where people do not have to snitch,
Correct.
then there will not be any snitching.
Absolutely.
Whatever, so you need to have that background.
Yes, no, but what I was trying to say by this example really was that even if you have the best intentions and you think, yeah, you shouldn't snitch, it's something you don't realize what you're doing by sticking to the majority view, because you don't know the impact it's going to have on someone with a disability, for example. So you've got to let everyone speak and see how it looks from their perspective. Before you understand what really is the inequity of the situation.
True. And in fact, often it's
that often.
And in fact, often in organizations, in situations, is the people who don't speak. When they speak, what they speak makes the most sense, because it's always like that. And that is the thing. And I think, equity, or sense of providing that a sense of equity, is always that you need to create that environment. Create that environment, whether it's in office, whether it's in society. You need to put certain checks and balances, or certain opportunities, accessibilities, so that everybody can have strive to have an equal chance.
Yeah. And so this is, of course, about organizations, but I mean, it's also in families, like within families.
True.
It's in a state. It's so you can apply the same concepts to all human organizations.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is that when you scale up and you go to, say, a family, to like a state level or a country level thing, then do you need to actually study who the disenfranchised people are in that society? Because at the end of the day, if you're not, if the policymaker or the person who's making the rules for that group is not asking everyone, including those who come in at the bottom of the pile or tend to come in at the bottom of the pile, or who are not speaking or whatever it is, if you're not actively soliciting their point of view, then you will never, you'll never find out what opportunities are even needed for them to come.
True. Right? That is the thing, the thing is about, there's this whole discussion about universality. All programs should be for everybody, this, that. But what happens is, for example, in a society where, the society has already advanced. For example, if there is a community, say a community in a particular where the education levels are good, healthcare systems are there, where the systems are working, things like that, then having a uniform access for everybody may work. But when the systems are not working, when there is no systems, when certain parts of the country are always lagging behind, having a universal program and saying that universal program will reach every nook and corner of the area, it's not. So that is why I think you have to, identify with whatever you, maybe with data, with whatever you want to identify, talking to the community people, who you have to identify the disfranchised people, or the most excluded people, because the most excluded people in a big big village may not be coming may not be able to voice their opinion. I went for a field visit to one of the villages in Rajasthan. I went, and I realized that if and this is the worst, the villages with roofs that were almost breaking, the mud houses were always getting this almost falling apart, were always on the outskirts of the village. And I asked them, well, and most of them were basically considered the Dalits. And that is the
Right.
reality, you know reality. And this is the thing about society,
Mhm.
and it's always like, even in my village, let's not speak of, even in my village, even if you come to my village, you will see that eh, another person may just say that this village is a very remote village, and you have to have a universal program for them, and this, that. But
Mm.
if you come to my village, it's always the poor people, the people with less, people are uneducated people, and people with less land holding are always people who are voiceless, who are left
Mm.
behind. Their voice doesn't count. So I think it's important to identify, if you want to,
Yeah.
and important to invest,
Mm.
important to invest. I work in an international organization, for example. I work in an international organization, and the recruitment process is a very competitive process. It's a very transparent and open process. Open, everybody, it's advertised globally. You can get, and anybody can apply, but I always see all my colleagues are always from always, if you see, they're always from the cities, even from the poorest of countries. They are always from the big cities. They are always from the best colleges and universities, of
Right.
that country. They're always from international best college and universities. And if you talk to them, their background is always almost not almost 60, 70, 80% are always from the affluent, a little bit more educated.
Privilege.
And there's hardly anybody I have come across who has come from come from a university which is not very well recognized, and that kind of thing. And so, to have an inclusive, equity focused lens, you have to go beyond the universality. You have to go down and to really identify who the people are. And that is the thing.
So I guess this is why governments have like, what in our country we call reservation, and in other countries they call it positive
Yeah,
discrimination, which means that you go out and look for the people who are on the margins of society, who have been
yes,
suffering exclusion for several generations,
true.
and you try to pull them into the mainstream of whatever is
True.
happening in a school, or a government system, or an
Mm,
office system, or whatever. And I can understand that. But before we go ahead, I just want to talk a little bit more about poverty, because you were
mm,
talking about houses that are broken, etc. And one of the issues related to exclusion, is do you find, I mean, like, it seems to me as though all the same people who are excluded time and again are also the people who are poor. They are also the people who are lacking a good education. They are also the same people who are lacking access to healthcare. So basically, if you take a big say, when you shake it out a little bit,
mm.
there is like a whole lot of people who get access to everything,
Yeah,
right? And and then there are some who are not just excluded, but they also don't have any services, and they're always coming out on the bottom end of on any system that you look at.
true, true.
So, you know, with all this talk of equity and inclusion and diversity that goes on, I guess those who are used to being at the top of the food chain, which is those who come out on top mostly because, they've
Mm,
either the money, the background, the land,
mm,
the
mm.
education, then they have to maybe give up a little bit in order to make space for everyone else? So does it make them uncomfortable? Because I think it's easy for us to like talk about it, pay lip
True.
service, but in reality, you have to actually make space, isn't it?
True. I agree. Yeah, totally. And it's many a times in society, it's because of the people who have the power, even in a community, who have the power, they are not able to make that space. And so that is why many a times the poor, it's always, the poor always remain poor, the rich are always becoming richer and richer. And that is the thing. And there is always this tension, I guess, and 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 it's also, yeah, it's society. It's related to society, how human beings are, I think, and so and it's also, I guess, one is society, one is human beings, opportunities and things like that. But it's also about, to really see whether the access and opportunities for the poorer people, poor people, or people living below the poverty line, or the society, how whether these are really effective strategies, actually, to kind of.
Yeah, one way that we try at the Goa School, and I mean, I'm sure there are several other ways that we could, which is that, if you spot someone who's already got a bit of gas in them, that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
Got the spunk, who's got, a little bit of money, who's got the brains, is set on the right track, we don't actually ask them to join us. We ask those to join us who are a little bit, who may not make it if they don't get the intervention.
True.
Right. So it's almost like so it's like if you were a government, for example. I mean, the Goa School can do it for like the people, small organization that we run. But like if you're a government and you say, no, we are working for everyone, relax, stop making noise, we are working for everyone, that doesn't work, because actually if you don't go and seek out the people who have never floated to the top in whichever selection, and works precisely for them and give them priority, then you'll never grow as a whole.
Yeah, true.
You always have this other lot that pulls the ones that are doing well down. I mean, quote unquote. I mean, that's how it seems for some people. So anyway, but maybe this conversation is getting a little more esoteric. So let's just bring it back to terra firma. Can I ask you, and with your permission, which is that, has there ever been a time when you have personally faced inequity, and how did you deal with it? And I think a non-workplace example would be good, because workplace inequity has a lot of other things in it,
true.
There's power, there's politics, there's, the point is you've gotten into a workplace, and after that there's a lot more that has to be done to make you feel included. I agree. But, those are things for which people, it's almost like we have to, I mean, like certain organizations have to talk about what they do around this.
Sure.
Normal life, we possibly don't. So please try and answer this from like a non-work situation for us.
Yeah, this is a non-work situation,
Okay.
I'm just to give you an example. I think, the thing about being a minority, I'm not saying I'm excluded, I'm saying a minority in India, is that you face a lot of exclusion. Maybe people, a majority people don't even realize it. It's a case of realization. It's a case of self-awareness. Like, for example, it's all the time in Delhi, for example, all the time. When I go for shopping, Hindi is not my first language, and I'm not that great in Hindi. When I go for shopping, supposing I go to a Sarojini market, or when I go for shopping, the shopkeepers, most of the people think I'm international. So I try and speak in Hindi. Once I start speaking in Hindi, they I think will say, I say, no, I'm from India. So I say, okay. So, and so they say, where? I said, say, I'm from Northeast India, I'm from Darjeeling. I say like that. And automatically there, you see, first, when you go into a shop, they will treat as if you're a foreigner and you got lots of money and this, that kind of, and they will give you VIP treatment. As soon as I start speaking in Hindi and I explain that please, they will treat you. And it's for me, and this is a personal experience. They will treat you as if you have no money, you have nothing, and they just will go away. And I have experienced it many times. And I know I have some of my friends, similar situation. They have even that I haven't faced, but another friend has also faced an issue wherein, you know, he went to ask for a pair of shoe. The shoe guy, the shopkeeper said, "You cannot afford it." And this kind of things, like this kind of, and it's everyday biases you face, and this is a bias, I think, where minority people who are in less in number in a country that will face. Many people feel that it's anybody. Earlier I used to feel, oh my God, I'm so badly excluded, I have to explain my own nationality in my own country. But now I look at it from a more the other side. It's important for me to create awareness. They need to know that kind of thing. One of the biggest what example that I have, or this I really felt bad at that time, was when I went to see Fatehpur Sikri in UP, Fatehpur Sikri, which is next to Agra. I went to see. And at that time, a friend of mine, and they had come on work. So I took all of them because I hadn't also visited. So a colleague of mine, two of them, and we went to Fatehpur Sikri. The two of them were from Nepal, and myself, we went to Fatehpur Sikri. And at the door of Fatehpur Sikri, when I went for the ticket, they asked me for a foreigner's ticket. And I said, no, I'm not a foreigner. They said, show me your identity card. And it was 2009. I was young and naive. I never carried an identity card. Nobody and I was in that time of my life, I felt that why should I carry identity in my own country? But now I realize it's important to carry. So that time I did not have an identity card. I didn't have an identity card. I had I think I didn't have, and so I had my office card where it said national, but they wouldn't. They said, no, give me this, give me that. And then after that, I said, no, I am from this part. No, but they wouldn't. And at that moment, I was feeling so, discriminated. I actually felt discriminated at that time. And I came back and I even I found an address and I even wrote to them. So that this kind of, and my own colleagues from Nepal, because it's a SAARC country, they paid less. They had to pay a little less. They went into Fatehpur Sikri. I decided I'm not going to go, and I will never go to Fatehpur Sikri in my life. And so that is the thing, And I think the whole thing about, diversity, at least in India, I don't know.
That makes the biggest difference, right?
Yeah, and I think, and I was like, I got, and I came back and I asked my friends, and nobody at that time carried. Did you do in? I don't know. Nobody carries identity.
No, I don't need to press an identity card.
Yeah,
Maybe I
and
look.
so this was, yeah, and so this was one of the thing. But it comes with being diverse,
Yes.
diverse. But yeah.
Of understanding that, look, we have a great big country with a lot of different sorts of people, and everyone has to be treated with the same respect, irrespective of where they come from. I mean, that's something that comes, I guess, with education. I mean, here,
Yeah.
we communities fight. It's such a sad situation today, and everyone's talking about it. And really, I mean, there is that very important link between inclusion and diversity and democracy, which is that
True.
we can't really refer to this whole majoritarianism as democracy. And and it's difficult to always talk about our own country, and you've now had this international experience. And I'm I'm aware that like these are conversations that are happening today in the democratic
Yeah,
discourse in our country.
true.
So rather than going that way and angering anyone, because conversations
Yeah,
about inclusion and exclusion anger people, because you
true,
belong
true.
to a group, right? So rather than doing that, let's just try to understand this concept, say talking about another country, or maybe we got cut off because we use free version
Yeah,
of
no
Zoom.
worries.
In the last 10 minutes, I've actually been going through an existential crisis because I was working myself up to sort of ask you whether we could describe the link between democracy and inclusion
Mm.
using a non-India example, because it makes everyone too uncomfortable, and
Sure.
you don't get in trouble. But then my existential crisis comes from the fact that am I also backing away in a way, or
Mm.
from this discussion because I'm uncomfortable with it, and asking therefore for a non-India example. So anyway, I mean, that aside, I think it's important to describe that link, Bonnie, and let us know what you think.
Yeah, the thing is, whether it is in India or whether it is, it is in another country, actually, to my mind, it's a non-political, a common man mind. It's the thing about democracy is it's an ideal that it's a ideal that every country aspires for, is
Mm.
that everybody has a voice in that democracy, is everybody has a voice, everybody has an opportunity to vote for their leaders. But what the reality is this, like whether it is in India or any other country, a democratic country, it's the rule of the majority. If, for example, if you are less in number, and that is the reality, and it's a reality of democracy, and that democracy that we have in India, like for example, if I come from a minority community, and very less people, so automatically, even though if there will be less people from my community standing for the vote, or and less people, and so automatically, uh, the voices of the minority is kind of a kind of uh,
Ignored, maybe.
ignored in a way, ignored in a sense, it gets diluted, you know it gets
Mm.
diluted. And so that is the thing. And I think that is the reality of democracy. But the thing about positive thing about democracy is, whether I'm a minority, whether I'm an excluded person in a country like India, I still have the right to vote. So
Mm.
maybe I will vote for a popular leader, but at least I have the right to vote. And that is one thing about democracy that I love. Maybe I will not vote for maybe there will be no leader from my community who will come to the national level stage, maybe because we are too less a number. Many people are, they're still struggling to make still struggling to get everything in place, to they don't have time to for politics, or they don't have their networks. But as an Indian citizen, for example, I still say that I exercise my right to vote, or I still have a voice because I have a voting right. And that's what the reality of being mm, being in a minority, uh,
Mm.
uh, in a majority
Stick.
kind of
Majority.
stake. Yeah. And that is the reality. And I think everybody realizes.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that you're actually quite a strong believer in democracy, but
Sure.
that you are equally saying that the voice of the minority often gets lost in
Yeah,
that.
because it's a numbers game, no? It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game.
So yeah, that's important for us to talk about, and it is also true that almost every human on the planet has you know is in the minority about something
Yeah,
with
true,
on some
true,
lens,
true, true,
like for
true, true, true.
example, if you take a universe of people who can play the piano, I'm an idiot. I can't really
True.
play all that well. But if you take a universe of people who, just play music for fun
Mm,
and to entertain each other, everybody thinks I'm fantastic because not many people in that group can actually play the piano. You
mm.
know what I mean? So it's also the group and the subset that you take and how you
Yeah.
form societies and sub-societies. So, now in a workplace, I mean, we kind of touched on that before, but the reason I'm going back to it is because, in the development world, people are trying to make sure that development organizations mirror this idea of ideal sort of diverse, inclusive sort of
Mm.
workspaces, which then will get reflected into the society that we're trying to build, which should also be like that, right? But the idea is that you got to start at home with these reforms, right?
True.
So can you list out some practical things that people at workplaces or in everyday life can do to demonstrate that they are on this path of greater inclusion and greater diversity, without starting a fight, because people, we have biases in our language, we have biases in the way that we view people, how we treat people. Sometimes we're aware of them and sometimes we're using them to put people down. Sometimes we don't know what we're doing, right? So but just a list of practical tips perhaps would help at this stage.
Mm.
So
Like in my own area of work or in our own organization, the thing that helps with related diversity inclusion is many a times when you work in teams, like I work with people from Peru or people from Italy, people from Japan, people from everywhere. The thing is, they bring in experiences, strategies, perspectives, which are very different from mine, and
yeah.
it enriches your life. And I think, and that is why I think, for an organization, for a society, a homogeneous society would be so dull. you know and one of the reasons why India as a country, even in Italy, everybody wants to come to India. Oh, such a diverse, so different. It's because of the diversity, because we are so different. Some people have gone to South India. When they went to Ladakh, they were shocked that whether they were in Ladakh, and that kind of thing. And I think diversity actually is an area that brings new ideas, exchange of new perspectives, new learning, new color to the organization, to everyday life that you live. But I actually, this one, the practical tips, I because from my own office work as well as in own office culture, there are a couple of practical tips that I kind of wrote down. And these are things, values, actually. It is values that I think any office or any organization has to strive towards. And it's not that tomorrow you can make a very inclusive, diverse organization overnight. No, but there has to be some non-negotiables, in the organization. Be respectful, try and listen, exercise empathy. You There has to be some kind of a mechanisms of acting against gender biases. For example, if there is a gender bias, if there has to be some mechanism in a working environment or any place or in a country anywhere to be able to act against gender bias. There has to be gender identity awareness has to be there. Awareness of people's identity has to be there, and differences of awareness about people's diversity differences also has to be there. Pay attention to language. Many a times, with language you are a kind of also, also kind of discriminating or excluding people. You have to learn to have a positive culture, which means that maybe create a sense of belonging, have have a connection with different types of people, have systems that you can collaborate, and also and also try and have a culture where you put human beings first rather than acting on a hierarchical basis. Many a times in office work, it's all about organogram, hierarchy, that kind of thing. But if you want to have a diverse, equal, diverse, inclusive environment, you have to try and focus your base and interaction on acting as human beings first. Mm, you you have to be able to. Everybody has to be able to appreciate cultural diversity. It's important, and also the organization has to also invest in building human capacities, their understanding, giving space and representation from disenfranchised communities. Like I said, go out and seek people who are from those minority communities. They may be like your recruitment system maybe be very competitive, fair, and everything, but in all this fairness and competition, because many times when there is a competition and fairness, it's actually the people who have um, had a very solid base that come out on top. So to create an inclusive, diverse organization, you have to actually go a little beyond and look for those people. Very good competitive people, very good competitive people from disenfranchised communities, from excluded communities, who can also be a part of your organization. So invest in human capital, I think, capacities, and that is the thing. And also have like commit to anti-racism. It's very important. I don't know, and then it's a strong language, but you have to. There has to be a zero tolerance to racism, ageism. Respect the choice of others. Sometimes what I also see in many of the organizations is that people towards the people. Actually, I have some colleagues who feel that they are discriminated because they are old in the system. The people don't consult, that kind of thing. Whereas I've also come across young people who've just entered the organization who feel so excluded and left out. So you have to have this, have an environment that looks at issues on ageism as well, to be more respect for the choice of others, be aware of disabilities, and speak out and support. And I think that is the thing. So this is more or less, everybody has this, but yeah, I thought I'll
Yeah,
list them out. Yeah.
I thought this, yeah, it's a really great list, and each of these is so deep. There's so much behind it.
I
I
know.
should have a talk on each one.
True.
So, yeah, I mean, but it's good to understand what it is that we're talking about when you're trying to create an inclusive and diverse environment.
Mm.
So that's good. Now I'm gonna ask you a bit of a googly question, only because sometimes people do have this point of view, which is that, look, if I stop to ask everybody their opinion, I'll never get on with it. Dash it all. I need to just, be more efficient. I have to, I don't want to be slowed down by this. I want to, deliver stuff. And if my heart's in the right place, and so what if I haven't asked everyone? I'm thinking of everyone all the time. And would it not be a question of being inefficient if I stopped to ask everybody these questions? So what is your view on that?
I think asking, feeling the pulse of the people is important, I feel. And it's important to ask, even in an organization, even in an organization, if, for example, if you may be an efficient and effective organization, And you may just say, oh, we are damn good, we are damn good. But you don't know, because the times are changing so much, society is changing so much. And staff in a particular organization, they go back to their families, they come back. It's changing so much. If you don't know the pulse of the people that you work with, or pulse, then it's no use. You may say, oh, we are a damn good organization, people appreciate, but if you don't ask every now and then, stop and think and ask every now and then, how do you think, and that kind of thing, then you may soon become redundant,
So it's important.
and that is the
So
thing.
it's important to be
You
reflective in terms of your own growth.
Yes, you have to be reflective, you have to ask, consult. I think that is important.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to ask and consult. You got to know the pulse of the people, and every now and then, because many a times, like, people say that, oh, asking, because at the end the decision is made by 1-2 people, and why to ask, you know why to ask? But you cannot just say that decision is made by 1-2 people and not ask, you know and then, because that one day you will come to a position, come to a situation where that decision making person may just fail to ask anything. The person may be a dictator, you know so that is the thing. You have to put the systems in place where there is reflection, connection, getting feedback from people, that kind of thing, so that you avoid people taking sole decision by themselves and that kind of thing, at least in
So
an
what I'm hearing is
organization.
efficiency is linked to success, and in fact, you can't have either of those things if you're not doing the asking.
Yes.
So they're
Yeah.
integral to each other, right?
Yeah.
Very, very important to hear that message, actually. So, and also just going back to this whole idea about, it's not just the workplace, but it's about everyday life, and to apply it everywhere, whether it's a group of friends, it's a little clubhouse, it's an organization, everywhere, human beings, we tend to be hierarchical, and we
Yeah,
tend
true.
to align into these hierarchies, which is it's a natural thing. We do it all the time, right? I mean, there's this guy, Yuval Noah Harari, who's always talking about
Yeah,
how
yeah.
somebody who's never been to the Coca-Cola headquarters in some faraway country like one or something,
Mm,
can create a Coke bottle with a Coke product with a Coke label
mm,
exactly the same way, because
mm.
we're so hierarchical as humans that we can just follow orders and we can produce it
True.
exactly, right?
Mm,
So we do have a natural tendency towards it because we cooperate like that. But but society on the inside is perhaps changing a little bit,
true.
in the sense that not that we're saying no to hierarchies, but
Mm,
that we are saying, look, make connections sideways as well.
true.
We're saying become inclusive, bring people into the fold. Let that hierarchy, whatever it is, become a little flatter. Let it buzz with more people's points of view,
True.
and it's not necessarily going to get more inefficient if we
Mm,
do that. But in fact, it'll be more resistant to change, more resistant to disaster, things like that. If we have those sort of human
true.
structures. So
No,
what do you think?
very true. Yeah, agree.
Yeah. So
Because
you,
I
you
have seen, I have in my working life, I have seen these two kind of example. One leader, very consultative. Every now and then, she's asking for feedback, this, that, and at one point, many people felt that, hey, she's the leader, take the action, decide and take the action. She's too consultative, you know. But then I've seen another situation where the leader is took quick action, you know, made the decision, but did not consult too much. You see, but when I look at these two situations, and I look at the people, the teams, people in these two situations, and I always I ask some of my other colleagues and things like that. When I look at these two situations, what I felt is, in the first situation where leader was always asking, engaging, this people felt were what they felt was they felt they felt sense of worth, this leader is asking me. So this sense of giving more, doing more was good. I
Yes.
find people took initiative. They even did even more, that kind of thing. Whereas in some other, this other situation where the leader took the initiative and said, okay, I will make the decision and this, that, did not consult, people were not very happy. People are
Yes.
grumbling. Why is the leader taking decisions without consulting, that kind of thing? And the sense of I'm not in control is it kind of started percolating everywhere, and so people were unhappy. So I think more or less I think we as human beings, we are social beings. I think it's important to kind of um, kind of consult, work together, be inclusive, have different views, that kind of thing. And I think that kind of environment makes mm, um, it's a more a kind of a more horizontal, more egalitarian kind of environment, and there's more peace and joy, I think.
Peace, joy, and creativity. I was just going to say, which is, where your fulfillment comes from at the end of the day. So, yeah, this has been a lovely, lovely conversation, Bernie. I think we've gone through several rather difficult and also abstract concepts in a way
Yeah,
that
true.
made it simple for lots of people to understand. And we are in an environment where we're dealing with prejudice all the time. And there's a saying that has been, in the development world, which is rather popular, but I don't know if it's ever leaked out. And so maybe we should be the channel to leak it out. And the phrase is that, we as human beings have much more in common than we have differences. So we
True,
should try and
true.
focus
Very
on
true.
that, try to
Yeah,
for
true,
the
true,
love of people and for the love of humanity, and for
true,
we've got so many battles to fight, whether it's saving the planet in terms of the ecology or the environment or poverty. There's so much for us to do. Even when we're building businesses, how can we do that responsibly? If we're joining workplaces, what can we do within our workplaces that is beyond, which is about building humane and just societies, compassionate societies,
true,
Uh,
true.
so, so yeah, this has been a really, really exciting conversation, Bernie. Thank you so much for joining us.
uh, I don't know
And
whether I did any justice to this
oh,
conversation, but
it
yeah.
is. No, it is really, really. It's so important to make a beginning, and we're really happy to have you on board, and we hope you'll be back as a mentor soon as well. So I'll be in
Yeah,
touch with you about this.
yeah.
All right. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thanks for having me.
Not at all. It was our pleasure. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.